In today's video, we are going to create an amazing poster design for NESCAFÉ. Grab your mouse as we dive in. First things first, we are going to create a new document. Let's grab our asset. We are going to copy this image, Ctrl+C to copy, Ctrl+V to paste. Convert that to a smart object, Ctrl+T to transform. Now we are going to copy the rest of the items. We put this off. Holding down the shift key, we are just going to copy all these 3 layers together. With the layer selected, Ctrl+A, and we are going to center that, Ctrl+D to deselect. So we are just going to put this off. With this layer selected, Ctrl+J to make a copy. Then we are going to position the copy right about here. With the layer selected, Ctrl+J to make an extra copy. Then we are going to position it right here. Ctrl+J to make another copy. Ctrl+T, and we are just going to make it bigger. So we are going to transform that. With this layer selected, we are just going to position it somewhere. Ctrl+J to make a copy. We drop the layer. With the layer selected, Ctrl+J to make another copy. And we take it all the way to the top. We position it right here and adjust it properly. With this layer selected, we are going to be masking it out. So we are going to reduce the opacity. With the layer selected, we are going to create a mask. With the mask selected, we grab the brush tool. Hardness is set to 100. Opacity is set to 100. Foreground is set to black. We zoom in and we are just going to be masking out this portion. So we reduce the opacity so we can actually see through. Basically, we are repeating the same process. We set foreground to black. With the mask selected, we are just going to mask out that portion. So we are going to repeat the same process for all the other items. We are going to create an exposure adjustment layer. Drop the layer right here. With the mask selected, Ctrl+I to invert. With the soften brush, we are going to reduce the opacity. Hardness is set to 0. Foreground is set to white. And we are just going to paint some back. Create another exposure adjustment layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl+I to invert. With a soften brush, we are going to right click and change roundness and the angle of the brush. Foreground is set to white and we are going to paint some back. We are going to create a curves adjustment layer above all layers. Reduce the opacity. With this layer selected, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer. So we are going to be painting some shadows. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With the soften brush, right click and set roundness to normal. Foreground is set to white. Increase opacity just a bit and we are going to be painting some shadows. We are going to create another exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With the soften brush, we are going to reduce opacity and we are just going to be painting some shadows. We are going to repeat the same process for all the leaves and every other thing. So we create an exposure adjustment layer. With the mask selected, we are going to invert the mask by pressing Ctrl I. With a soften brush, we are just going to be painting some shadows or highlights. With this layer selected, we are going to apply layer style, so we right click and go for blending options. We are going to choose drop shadow. Now we are going to change this color. So we are going to copy this hex code. Opacity is 100, but we are going to manually do this, so we are just going to hold the shadow and manipulate it just a bit. Once everything is in place, we are going to hit OK. With the layer in place, we are going to close it up, right click and create layer. So we are separating the shadow onto a new layer. Right over here, we right click and convert that into a smart object. Then we are going to apply motion blur. We set our angle and distance, then we hit OK. With the layer selected, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl I to invert. With the soften brush, foreground is set to white, and we are going to be painting some shadows. We are going to create another exposure adjustment layer. Invert the mask by pressing Ctrl I with a soften brush. Foreground is set to white and we are just going to paint some shadows. So we are just going to be painting some shadow. We are going to create a curves adjustment layer, reduce the opacity. With the vine selected, we are going to apply drop shadow, so we go for blending options. Opacity is set to 100. We are just going to move it just a bit. Then we hit OK. We are going to close that up. Right click and create layer. We are separating the shadow onto a new layer. We convert that into a smart object. With the layer selected, we are going to apply Gaussian blur. Set our radius. So we are going to set our radius at 7, then we hit OK. With the layer selected, we are going to create a mask. With the mask selected, we are going to increase the opacity. Foreground is set to black. And we are just going to be erasing this portion we don't want. We are going to create an exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl-I to invert. With the soft brush, foreground is set to white. We reduce the opacity. With the soft brush, we are just going to be painting some shadows. With the layer selected, we are going to create an exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl-I to invert. With the soft brush, foreground is set to white. We are going to reduce the opacity. With the soft brush, we are just going to be painting some shadows. We are going to create another exposure adjustment layer clipped onto the layer. With the mask selected, Ctrl-I to invert. We are going to repeat the same process for the other two vines. With this layer selected, we are just going to paint more shadows and highlights. Then we are going to finish it up. Once we have everything in place, then we are going to merge all layers by pressing Ctrl-Alt-Shift-A. With the layer selected, we are going to convert that into a smart object. And we are going to apply camera raw. So we are just going to play with all the settings. Once that is looking good, then we hit OK. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope to see you in the next one. Till next time, stay creative.